Hello and welcome to Larry Has Opinions. I only had 7 books of my best of 2021 video. That doesn't mean that there weren't several other books that really left an impression on me. And those are the ones that I'll be talking about today. Let's get started. And let's begin with a thriller, Behind Her Eyes. Thrillers typically are so forgettable to me. I really love them and enjoy them while I'm reading them, but once I finish them, a few months down the line, I've already always forgotten all about them, the characters, the plot, pretty much everything about them. But this one is really memorable. The characters, first of all, but some of the scenes that happen in the book are really something that I think you're going to remember for a long time. And then it has this paranormal sort of element to it and the twist, which I know is not to everybody's taste, but I thought it was really original and really enjoyable. So this is one I'm going to remember for a long time. Another very memorable book for very different reasons is Burnt Sugar by Avni Doshi. This is all set in modern day India, where we follow the relationship between a mother and a daughter, where the mother hasn't necessarily been the typical role model of what's expected of a mother, and she started to suffer from dementia, and the daughter is supposed to be looking after her. But obviously she has quite a lot of resentment towards her. And we follow this exploration of this really sensitive theme about this relationship, which quite often tends to be a bit taboo when you have this competitive element between parents and children. The writing is also very raw and very distinctive, so it's another one that is going to stick with me for quite a long time. Moving on to Small Pleasures by Claire Chambers. And this follows the story of this journalist who lives with her elderly mother just outside London in the 1950s. And she's called to investigate the claim by this woman who says that she has given birth to her daughter by parthenogenesis, which means without having had intercourse with a man. Despite the wacky premise, it's quite an ordinary story, or more ordinary than you might expect. And I think it will really resonate with a lot of people who love themes about the exploration of fulfillment and meaning in life, how quite often this can let us down, and also how relationships with parents sometimes can be really consuming and almost toxic to some extent. This has also a very abrupt and controversial ending that I know wasn't very popular with a lot of people, but still it's one that I really enjoyed and will remember for a long time. On to another pretty wacky premise, which is that of Earthlings by Sayaka Murata. And here we follow a young girl who's really struggling with the environment around her because she has a really difficult relationship with her family, and also a number of kind of unsavory episodes happen to her. So she convinces herself that she's actually an alien that was dropped off from another planet when she was a young kid. And so she's expecting to flee planet Earth at some point. And things kind of escalate pretty quickly from there. And this is definitely not a book for the faint of heart or for the squeamish, because whenever Murata has a chance to push the narrative onto a direction you don't want to go, she's definitely going to go jump in there fully. So it's one that I think if you're sensitive to a certain thing, just look up the trigger warnings, because this has plenty. Nevertheless, it touches on a lot of really sensitive themes around the expectations that society puts on people in order to conform, and how hard are you allowed to push back from that, and also when it comes to like extreme withdrawal from society, which is a very Japanese phenomenon, but that also happens in other parts of the world. So this is another really, really memorable one. And touching on some similar themes but in a very different way, I have Box Hill by Adam Mars Jones. And this follows this relationship between two gay men in 1970s England. But this is not your usual partnership of equals, but it's more a sub-dom relationship, which, in case you're not familiar with it, it means that one person is submissive to the other who's dominant. But what I really loved about this book is that there's this disconnect between what mainstream society would consider acceptable and what the people in this relationship find fulfilling, and how Mars Jones is really depicting this with a lot of nuance and leaving the judgment up to you entirely. So different people seem to draw very different conclusions from this story, which I think is usually a sign of great writing, great storytelling. And the fact that this is the shortest book that I read last year, less than 150 pages, and managed to be one of the most memorable, again, I think is a sign of a great story. And last but certainly not least, I have A Dutiful Boy by Mohsin Zaidi. And you forgive me if there's a bit of a theme with books set in Southeast England in this video, but anyway, this is Zaidi's memoir, who was born in a very conservative Muslim family in London. And he recounts the struggles of realizing that he was attracted to men and that wasn't really an option acceptable in his community. And so the struggle with coming to terms with his own sexuality and the depression that ensued. But he also talks about how cutting ties with his family and starting a new life somewhere else wasn't really an option available to him either, because of how deep his attachment to his family was. So this was a very emotional story that I really, really enjoyed. And obviously now Zaidi is a successful published author and lawyer, if I'm not mistaken. So it's also a very hopeful book recommendation for you for once. I hope you guys like this video. I have full reviews for quite a few of the books that I mentioned. The links are down below. If you want to join our Discord, the link is in the description box as well. Let me know in the comments if you had any particularly memorable reads from 2021, and I'll see you the next time.